Okay, so I'm here with Spain Park head wrestling coach Ryan Thompson. How you doing today, Coach?
I'm good, doing good.
Awesome. So first off, Coach, can you tell us a little bit about your wrestling background?
Yes, I can. So I've been coaching now for about 20 years. Wrestling started off competing in wrestling in Montgomery, junior high school. So we did not have youth wrestling. So junior high, seventh grade, and then competed for Robert E. Lee in high school. And then as I began my coaching career, I started out in junior high school in Montgomery at Capitol Heights, and then went to Prattville with Trent Miller. And then after that, went to Opelika, spent 9 years there. Went to Gulf Shores for a year and worked to get wrestling in Baldwin County started. And then I've been here at Spain Park since.
So, Coach, you coach wrestling and football. What are the major correlations between the two sports?
Well, they're both contact sports. So, when you think of traditional high school sports, those marry up probably the best together. It's a lot of hands-on, leverage, hand fighting, physical. The physicality of it's a little bit different as far as wrestling's more of a grind, whereas football's, high collision, high speed. But it's also a lot of one-on-one matchups, at least even in football throughout the game, especially depending on the position you play. So a lot of the skills are the same, and a lot of the mindset is the same as well. Wrestling really, really helps the football player as far as a self-confidence level, because you're forced into a one-on-one deal, so you gain confidence through wrestling, being able to go into a one-on-one situation and have success. So you build confidence there. That carries over into football. Also, they're both painful. They can both be painful. And you got to fight through the pain. So some differences, you just want similarities, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Actually, I was gonna see
Okay.
you already mentioned.
Yeah.
I'm gonna edit all this part.
Okay.
But you mentioned how. So, Coach, you mentioned how football or how wrestling benefits football, but how does football benefit wrestling?
Okay. So football does benefit wrestling in that you get some of the same situations out there on the grass or the turf that you would get in here. Another way it helps is that your teammates carry over from one sport to the next. So you got some camaraderie between guys that you've maybe played, in the trenches with, and now they're going to be wrestling, above or below your weight class. They're your partners. So they're your partners in football, in your drills, and they're your partners in the room. So, plus they're both hard. So, they're grinding sports, and you're gonna grind as much in football as you are in wrestling. Now, cardiovascular wise, wrestling is a little more taxing in different aspects because you literally have somebody own you, the whole time. Whereas in football, it's sporadic, it's in spurts. But just the mental toughness and the physicality of it. If you're coming out of football, I don't feel like you're necessarily way behind going into wrestling. Because now, I would say that, but drilling wise and things like that, as long as you're spending a little bit of time, then the transition is easier, I think, coming out of football as opposed to maybe not playing anything. Plus, you're also lifting. So you're lifting in the football season and you're lifting to get stronger. So you're really not losing anything when it comes to transitioning into wrestling. I think they're very complementary. They keep you from overusing or overworking parts of your body if you were to do just one sport per se. So I think it really saves you in the long run, because you're not over repping something maybe throughout the year, and it's a nice break. It's a nice break to get out of one sport and go into another one, and you're looking forward to going into the next one. So it just keeps things fresh. I think that's important for a young kid and it's important for even a high school kid as well, because you can burn out. So if you don't want to burn out. If you burn out, then it was all for nothing. So I think it helps.
So, Coach, you're a major advocate for the girls wrestling movement. What are you doing to encourage, other female athletes to come, maybe try the sport out?
Well, historically speaking, I guess since I've been coaching wrestling, there's been sporadic wrestling of girls, intermingle with guys from the youth level all the way up, which I think is good. There's some negatives to it, kind of unintentional negatives, I would say. I think it's great. I think it's a great sport to do, wrestling. It's really a lifelong sport. Even if you're not competing, if you're just training, drilling, great way to stay in shape, stay active, full body activity, exercise. It is complementary to gymnastics and a lot of things that girls already do. So most of the time when girls start off in sports, they start off in dance and gymnastics. So the carry over to wrestling is not far-fetched per se, because there's a lot of that in wrestling. A lot of flexibility, a lot of balance control, they get already. I think it is going to be really good. I think as it becomes more mainstream, it'll become more popular and not as taboo per se for a girl to wrestle. I think the ladies on the Olympic team and the ladies that are competing in the world have done a good job showing that you can be, a strong woman, feminine, and all those things don't have to go out the window per se, just because you're in a more contact sport. I don't think that like judo or karate aren't really looked down on at all, and women have been competing in things like that for a long time. So I think it's good. It gives them a good avenue to compete, and as more girls come along, like I said, it's a team of girls. Now, with that in mind, do I think that they should practice with guys and things like that? I say yes. Because in any sport, you're looking for the best partners that you can get. Now, if that happens to be a guy, great. If it happens to be a girl, so be it. It doesn't matter. So the more people are in the room, the better you're going to get. It doesn't matter if the coaching's coming from a guy or if the coaching's coming from a woman. As long as the coaching is and the technique is where you want it to be, then that's great.
So, Coach, you've been around Alabama wrestling for the last 30 years. That's a long time. So what are some major changes that have happened over the years, and what do you see needing to change, in the future to make it better?
Well, I think one thing that's changed is one big change is happened with social media is the amount of technique that you can expose yourself to. So I would say historically in Alabama it was a lot more regional. So the things that wrestlers would learn when I was wrestling before, those would be things that primarily you learn in your room from your coach or maybe teammates or guys that came in every now and then. But it was very regional. The club scene was not really even in its infancy, honestly, when I was wrestling or before. Coach Gadosh would do things in the summer and some other coaches, but it was nothing like on the scale it is now. So that's one huge change. Another huge change is weight management, because we would be able to cut lots of weight. There was no management. We could weigh out at that night. A lot of things have changed there, which are for the better, which I'm supportive of. Those are two big changes. What else would be? Another change would be probably the travel. Even during the season. So more teams are going out of state, more teams see out of state competition. And when I say out of state, I mean, 3-4 states removed sometimes, which is good because it raises the level of wrestling here when they come back. And we also have lots of teams that are coming into our state to compete in tournaments. So we're exposed to new coaches, and different things, which makes wrestling. I think all those are positive changes that have occurred.
So Coach, what do you what are the benefits of club wrestling? And you also had a club for the youth at your facility this year, but you know, what are the benefits of doing club wrestling in the off season and all that for your team?
Well, first off, we're fortunate in Birmingham because we have multiple clubs that they can choose, which is good. If you're from Baldwin County or somewhere else, maybe like the Shoals area or something, you're going to drive a ways to get to a club. So that's good that we have those clubs near us, very near us. As far as our young kids, we have Warrior come in and we kind of outsource our youth, but we do it in our room, which is very nice because saves our kids time and so forth. I think that club wrestling is really paramount to being a successful wrestler. Now, the degree to which you use the club can vary depending on what you do. So if you're a multi-athlete, that might look different than if you are just concentrating on the sport of wrestling itself. So it could be anything. It could be as much or as little as you want it to be, which is the good thing about a club. Also, the best thing about a club is that you get good instruction, but to me, more importantly, you get partners that you can choose to work with. So as far as being at school, you're limited with your room. You're limited. So not that you can't get better, but you can't control necessarily your partners per se. But I can go to a club practice and wrestle with whoever I want. I mean, I don't have to go to one club per se. I could go to a couple of different rooms throughout the summer if it means me being able to get on the mat with some good partners, get some good different techniques and things. And then it offers you a chance to compete. Here we look at what we just went through with the COVID deal. And as far as restrictions placed on high schools, we couldn't allow students on campus. We couldn't have students even at the school. Even through the summer, we could not make contact with one another per se, but those restrictions were not the same when it came to clubs. So I could go to my club, I could wrestle 4 or 5 hours a day, so it gives you an alternative to work, I'll say around high school rules, but it gives you an opportunity to not, twiddle your thumbs, so to speak, and get better. The last thing about clubs that's great is the competition opportunities that are afforded you because, I can go to the highest level that I want to go to. I can go to nationals, I can go to Fargo, I can go to all these different places, and it grows the wrestling community because you get outside of your team and you get to make friends in the wider wrestling community, which really is a small, tight-knit group. And more than likely, these guys that wrestle in high school are gonna be wrestling fans throughout adulthood, whether they have any sons that wrestle or not. So they're gonna be your fans in the future. And being able to go to clubs and make those relationships, you really as you travel around, you don't really, you're always running into somebody and it's something you look forward to. So I think it's really good. There's some competition amongst the clubs, which is inevitable. But I think overall, there hadn't been a whole lot of animosity necessarily from club to club. So they even work with each other, which is great. And they work with the coaches. Like I said, Warrior works with our youth. So they complement one another.
So there are a lot of rumors that we might not have a season this year, and my two questions would be, how are you gonna tell those seniors that their senior season's been cut, and what are you gonna be doing in that time to benefit your athletes?
The main deal with that is, like you said, seniors miss an opportunity. I think that's the biggest. Of course, nobody wants to miss their competition season, but we already did that last year at the end of the year. And there's really no way around it. I mean, like we had our softball team was doing really good. They had a chance to win. Baseball team was doing well, and So for those seniors, it was not only did they lose out on the chance to accomplish some of their goals, but they lost on maybe exposure to college coaches if that's what they were wanting to do. There's no way to really control that. I think where we're at right now, I think we've got a pretty good grasp on what causes it, how it's spread, things you can do to prevent it and slow it. Of course, in football season, we're seeing things every day. People come on, people are deciding to cancel their seasons or deciding to move them or postpone them to the spring. We had people like last year get to keep their scholarships and come back for another year in some of those spring sports, but that doesn't happen in high school. You're going to graduate, you're going to move on. So I would say, even if it means cutting way back, and I'm for any cutbacks or any limitations, if it means having a season, I'm for any of those. So, if they say, hey, we can't travel out of state, then we'll just wrestle in state and we'll get to have a state tournament. To me, that's different, but it's still a chance for you to prove you're the best here and accomplish some of the goals and to develop throughout the season. Now, if they do decide, I think right now we're entering in at level 3 for our school. We're going alternate days, even attending school. We have all kind of precautions that we're having to do in football as far as staying so far away and keeping things clean and so forth. So I think with a sport like wrestling, where obviously the contact is heavier there than any other sport, it's going to be the toughest sell. I mean, honestly, I think it's going to be the toughest sell. But this would be the second time in 2 years that the guys get, at least from the college standpoint, if that happens again, those guys missed out last year and they didn't get to come back. So I really hate it for them. Again, though, when you look at that, an alternative, I guess, would be if you couldn't do it from an AHSAA standpoint, you could do it from an unofficial club standpoint, because they did get to compete, if I'm not mistaken, throughout the summer. So depending on the rules and regulations there, now that could be nixed as well. So I don't know. I guess you could hope for the best, and hope that we come up with some things, or maybe some vaccines or things that possibly help us to get back to some sense of normalcy, honestly.
So what would you be doing with your team during the season if it got canceled?
During the season, we would do whatever they allowed us to do.
What if they said that they were just going to cut rest, like they weren't going to let you do any wrestling at all?
If they said we could not wrestle at all, then we would do whatever non-wrestling things we could do at school when we attended. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, we're alternating days. So weight room things, any kind of speed, agility, strength training, or any wrestling things that you can do without having contact, whether it's movement or whatever it is. But we would have to really advocate that those clubs would really have to play a big role if that was something that was allowed. We would definitely try to have all of our guys. It would obviously probably be off-site. It would probably be at the club. But again, like I said, a lot of those things can get restricted too. So, if they say, we witnessed all that, not being able to go into restaurants, having to be in at a certain time. So, very easily those could be taken away as well. So I would say don't be pushy, allow our people the HSAA, they're working on our behalf. They want us to wrestle and compete and play sports. So I'm very thankful for them. They're working really hard to give us a season. So, we're trusting in them that they're doing all they can, and we're going to do everything that they tell us to give us the best chance to get out here.
So, Coach, if we do have a season, what are some of the big things you're looking forward to this season?
Well, we've got a lot of kids coming back. I have a lot of returners as far as experience goes. Hopefully I have one or two that couldn't wrestle because of injuries coming back. This would be a good season as far as seniority for us. Our numbers have improved steadily over the last 7 years in the program. We finished, we were top 10 last year, and obviously have a tough region that we're in. But I look to build on what we did. Not necessarily as much team goals is, the guys in our room, the strides that they made from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. They finished on a high note. They surprised some people, and so I like the personal growth, seeing them in the room, being able to master skills that they couldn't master or they were just introduced to at the beginning of the year. And I just like to see the carryover into matches and their confidence that they start to gain, as they start beating guys that maybe they would be getting beat by earlier in the year. That happened with us several times in the postseason. Us beating guys or having freshmen wrestle upperclassmen and actually, being close or beating them in sectionals and such. So I look for a good showing in sectionals. I like the dual aspect. I like the dual competition aspect. I really would like to get in that and qualify as a team and have a chance to compete in that format. I think overall, top to bottom, we'll be pretty good. So, we got a good shot at that. Obviously, the teams that we're wrestling are really good as well. But that's one of my goals for us, is to make that tournament. And also another goal of us is to push into those top 3 spots that you're trying to get into in the state tournament, so that you're competing for, you're battling for that top spot on Friday and Saturday, on the board there. So obviously we want to get all our guys to medal. We want to win every weight class. We want to get them on that podium on both those tournaments, section and state. But really, we want them to like coming in here, and we want them to get something out of wrestling. As far as confidence. I'm a better man. I'm a tougher man than I was. I have confidence. I did this, so I can face all these other things, and that's what we want long term for them. And we want them to develop this wrestling family of guys that they can lean on, that become their friends, and that they struggle with. That's the good thing about any wrestling season. So we really hope that we can carry that out this year. We get afforded that chance.